Hey, well, welcome to the conversation, everyone. Thanks for being here and thanks for your interest, live or on the recording. I think what we'll just start. Ilarion, we'll just ask you to introduce yourself, and yeah, whatever you would like to tell us about yourself, about your people, and about your work. We'd love to hear it.
Okay. Well, Angwan, kamu ang kinga kamnang kinga kasuda ting Unangan way Unangan nakata kuyak. I said, hello, my other self, Angwan, which is the way we greet each other every day. And I said, the evening tastes good. That's another way we greet each other every day. And I said I'm Unangan. We don't use the word Aleut because that was given to us by our former oppressors. We say Unangan, which means the people by the sea. And we've been in the Bering Sea for over 10,000 years and we're still there. And I said my traditional name is Kuyak, which means I was given that name at 4 years old by the last Kuyak that was left alive amongst my people. And it means like an arm extending out from the body, a carrier of ancient knowledge into modern times, a messenger. So I've been living the legacy of my name for well over 50 years. And so I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me. And I hope for all of you that some of what I may share may be useful to your life. Part of my background, my generation was the last generation that had a traditional upbringing. And so it's rare now to see someone with a fully intact traditional upbringing. I'm very familiar with religions and spiritual groups and secular groups, and I've talked with just about everybody around the world particularly the last 4 years. So, for example, I was a keynote speaker at the Parliament of World Religions, the Interfaith Council of Churches. Then I talked with a group of about 100 ministers that were interested in indigenous ways of knowing and their religions. And so my people were very spiritual. Over 10,000 years of existence in the Bering Sea, we developed a basic form of brain surgery. We had words for everything in the inside and outside of the body. We were the only people in Alaska that didn't have footwear, even in the wintertime. We were like the llamas in the east, where we'd sit in the snow and we'd melt it. That was my people. So it was wonderful. We have a word for billion. There's only one other culture, as far as I know, that had a word for billion that existed in their culture for thousands of years, and that is a small village in Egypt next to a lake. And my people. So you wonder, why would any people, have a word for billion thousands of years ago? And you can't even count a billion stars, you can count maybe 2,000. That was my people. And I grew up in a magical island called St. Paul Island in the middle of the Bering Sea. It had 1.4 million northern fur seals, 2.5 million seabirds, 1,000 reindeer, and 450 Unangan people. It was a magical place to grow up with such intensity of wildlife. And my experience with the town, literally the entire town raised me. Every time I would walk on the road starting at age 5 until about age 13, I would always be affirmed by every single adult in the village. And they would say something like, "I'm the Kochtien, good boy." That's the way I was greeted every day. And that was such a wonderful thing. And I could go to anybody's house day or night and be treated like the long lost son, you know. Ah, lakaya kamuda, michidwa, kakat. Come in, sit down, eat. That's the way that I was always greeted. And I would spend most of my time outdoors. And it was a wonderful experience. I would be next to the tidal pools around the island. The island is very small. It's 12 miles long and 5 miles wide. Very small island with intensity of life. And that's how I grew up. Now, there are lots of things that I could share, but I want to make sure that we hit the essential points in organized religions and indigenous views of spirituality. I facilitate wisdom weavers of the world. If you're interested in that, it's www.wisdomweavers.world. And it's a collection of spiritual elders from around the world. And we met for the first time in Kauai in 2017, and we did ceremonies every morning when we were together, and then talked during the day, and we only asked 2 questions. What is the state of the world as we see it now, and what must we be doing now? And we had 35 hours of film that we gelled down to 15 minutes. It was launched by Reuters News Service in 2020 during Earth Day, interpreted into 15 different languages, and seen by over 80,000 people the first day. So it was a good launch for us to have the elders speak about what they think is important. And my experiences as a Kuyach, I'm invited by spiritual leaders all over the world. I've been in many places in the world, and one example would be I was in the largest reservation in Ontario, the Morley Reserve, where the elders invited me to come to a ceremony they hadn't performed in 150 years. And they were all white hair. There must have been about 20 of them. All white hair, all wearing the regalia. They only spoke their own language. They didn't speak any English or any other kind of language. They just spoke their language. And I got there, and here they were at a battered women's shelter praying. And they had 4 sacred pipes in the 4 directions facing each other. And they spoke English for the first time about 2 hours into the ceremony. And they said, "We're speaking English for the benefit of our friend from Alaska." And so they said they've been praying to the Creator. And they had a message for me to carry. And that message was, we know that many people have forgotten think they've forgotten their spiritual ways. We know that that is not true, and you should know that. That has been kept for you in the unseen world, waiting for you to wake up in spirit. And that was the end of it. And then they went on for 2 more hours. But that was significant. It's typical of the types of exchanges I've had with many indigenous groups around the world. And what the elders are saying is that we need to wake up now. Wake up to being a real human being. Wake up to your heart, which is in harmony with all that is. And we call Great Spirit, or the Spirit that lives in all things. And they said that Mother Earth is going through a time of purification, and you're going to see intensified earthquakes, fires, floods, droughts, deforestation. All these things that are happening now is going to intensify in a way that we haven't seen since the beginning of time. And they said that when people, traditionally the heart used to tell the mind what to do. And the mind's job was to implement that which your heart is telling you. Now it's reversed. The Yupik elders in Southwest Alaska, they call this the reverse society, because we reverse all the laws for living. And that traditionally, when the heart tells the mind what to do, the mind, that only job is to implement that what your heart is telling you. Now it's reversed. The mind is telling the heart what to do. And we're dependent upon logic and rationality when we need to be trans-rational. This is what we mean by thinking outside the box. You go trans-rational, which is to one's heart. It's the only place my people understood that that the divine is connected to. And we can't find the divine, according to my people, unless you're present in the moment and in the heart. And that this is the only place that the divine exists. It doesn't exist in the past or the future. It exists right now, while we're alive at this second. And so that's fairly significant. I have so much I could share with you. My grandfather, in a traditional upbringing, I had to be with him 24/7 for 2 years at age 4. And we would go down to the Bering Sea, take our shirts off, spray ourselves, even in the winter time, and pray towards the east. And then that night we might go to the Russian Orthodox Church, because he did not see any difference in where one finds one's spirituality. Not religion, but spirituality. And I understand this because all my people, including my parents, were Russian Orthodox, which was a legacy from the Russian conquerors. And I became the youngest person in the Russian Orthodox Church of North America to be 2 steps away from being a priest, and I was only 12 years old. And they even wanted me to go to Mount Athos, which is a place of nothing but prayer by monks. And I left the church when I was 16 years old, and that's when I began my journey as Kuyak in earnest. And so I talk about the things that I know, and what I know I lay out on a platter. And that's the extent of my job, is that if you pick it up or not is your business. I cannot interfere with that, because you're all on a sacred path. And you are all in a sacred journey. And you are, in fact, the way that I understand it, everyone is sacred. when I talked with the 100 or so priests or ministers one time, I said, you know, we humans are very interesting. You take a kitchen rubber glove and blow it up like that. These fingers think they're human when they're only one breath. And that's where, that we understand the Great Spirit that lives in all things exists in everything. And so that's a parallel to Christianity in a way. And there are some differences. For example, I use the example of Genesis, the book of Genesis, where God tells Adam and Eve that you can partake of everything here except for the tree of good, knowledge of good and evil. And of course, from my viewpoint, what God did was give them instructions on how to maintain yourself as a real human being. And they partook of the apple. And what happened was they had knowledge of good and evil. That's when we first started to create duality, where everything is dual to us now in this world, where we think of right, wrong, good, bad, good, evil, Republican, Democrat, you name it. It's a duality that separates people, and we understand that we are spirit beings in human form, and we are to learn what we learn that hopefully will be something that we can carry to the next world or next life or whatever it is that we become, that we learn that God, or Aro we call, Aro is not gender driven, because spirit is not gender. And Great Spirit is not gender. That what we do is unify the duality. And that's a difference between indigenous people and where many people around the world have forgotten that we used to unify duality. And now we think, because we're born into this world, that duality is the natural way, when we know it's not. And that this duality is separation that exists now in everything that human beings have created. You take nation states, you take distinctions between white, black, and yellow, and red, and all these kind of skin colors, different religions, different political systems. They're all separation. And that when we unify these dualities, that separation will not exist. And so I think I've said enough for now. We could open up.
Wow. Yeah, there's thank you, Ilarion. So the question that's coming up in me now, we'll go right back to the way you introduced yourself. And hello, my other self. I feel like in the church tradition, most of us here were raised, maybe all of us here were raised in. We both had a concept of that and an aspiration towards that kind of thing, my other self. But we also put a lot of effort into division and separation. So it's tell us a little more about hello, my other self.
Yeah.
Or take the rest of the time about that. Yeah. What? It's huge.
Yeah, you know, when I drive down the street and I see a homeless person, I send a prayer and I say, "Thank you, human being, for having the courage to be on this Mother Earth now, because it's taking courage to be here." Excuse me, my daughter is at the door. I've got to open up the door for her.
Certainly, take your time.
So I'll be.
Um,
Mark, I'm glad you asked that because I wrote that down. That was so striking when he started that way.
and I do feel like we had that concept. We would talk about that, but yet there was so much in our church structure that prohibited that.
Right. It makes me think of like to truly see someone else, you have to be able to validate their experience, right? Like really validate what they're going through. And I think sometimes in the church it would be hard to do that if their experience was very different from our beliefs.
Yeah, and it's what's coming up for me right now is, our intentions were often very, very good. Often they weren't, as we've found out too, among many. But often, for most of us, I think our intentions were often very, very good. But all we've ever known is these thousands of years and steeped in that us-them duality that he was talking about.
Yeah.
And it's going to take a long time. Well, maybe it's not going to take a long time, but it's going to take a lot of awareness to get back to that way of. I know it's taken a lot on my part to kind of begin to heal from that us them in out, good bad. Ilarion is.
He's back now. Yeah.
Okay. Are you? Yeah. Sorry, the way I've got this. Yeah. So Ilarion, you were beginning to tell us about the hello, my other self.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you about I was a slave of the U.S. government. The Russians had enslaved us. They had wiped out 80% of our population, and the survivors were taken to the Pribilof Islands to kill fur seal for their pelts. And then the U.S. took over in 1867, and they treated us just as bad, if not worse, than the Russians did during the last days of their administration. And we were slaves until 1966. We were held as a captive labor force by the U.S. government. And it wasn't until some men had gotten together to write a letter that they sent out to someone who had smuggled it off the island. You couldn't visit the island. Only government agents could go there, and they didn't want the world to know what was happening to our people. But they smuggled the letter out, and it was published by the only native newspaper in the state of Alaska by a man called Howard Luke, and Howard Rocka rather. And he published a letter. It was picked up by the Human Rights Commission, which was led by a black man, and his name is Willard Bowman. And he decided that this was worthy of investigation, went to the island, found the allegation to be true, and sent a report to Congress, and Congress conducted their own investigation. And then that ended up in our Freedom Bill in 1966. Ironically, it was called the First Seal Act of 1966. The people were second. But we did establish the right to vote in state and federal elections. We could own our own houses, which were owned by the government before that. And so now we can call them homes, and so we could create our own businesses for the first time in our lives, and so that's how we started. And the men were treated brutally. There were 5 men that were picked to kill seal, clubbing them. And there was a whole bunch of men that were after that would do various things to the fur seal to get the pelt off. And my father was one of the clubbers of the seals, and it was very brutalizing work. And so the result of that work, I mean, they had to kill 500, 600,000 seals in 2 months. And the average man, if they went older than 35 years old, that was considered old, because most of the men were debilitated by the time they were 35. My dad died when he was 48. And so the men were treated very harshly. Opposition would be treated very harshly. One man I remember went down to the government agent's office and trashed it because he was pissed off about how his people were being treated. And the government agent knew he had to make an example out of him. And so he had a wife and 5 kids. And the children were taken away and put in every member of the family except for the man were put in different houses, ordered not to interact with each other ever again. And then the man was banished to the end of the island without any provisions, thinking that he would die. But people smuggled things out to him, so he survived, and 3 months later he was repatriated back to the village, and he was told he will never see his family again. He was ordered never to contact them, just like the other members. And so he drank to a stupor until he died about 15 years ago. And every member of his family died of alcohol complications. So that's just an example of the way that they were treated. But, you know, I had the inspiration of our elders who still maintained our cultural way. And they said, you know, if you end up hating or having bitterness or anger towards anyone, you will destroy yourself and end up destroying your people. And they said it's like picking up a hot rock that you throw at somebody, and you burn yourself, not the other. And so that's why I learned from the elders how we needed to be as real human beings. And so that's why they understood what it meant to when you're saying, hello, my other self. We all have the darkness and the light inside of us. And, you know, we make distinctions by what somebody visibly does, but what happens is nothing is created outside until it's created inside first. So we criticize others on the outside because we're criticizing ourselves first. We condemn others because we're condemning ourselves. And that is so true, that nothing is created outside until it's created inside first. So if there's hatred, the hatred begins with us. If we want peace, we have to become peace. Not think peace, not do peace, become peace. If you want love, you must become love. Not act love, not think love, become love. And this is something that some indigenous people around the world, indigenous tribes, still understand that. That's called part of the original instructions. Now, people might think, well, you know, you're talking magical stuff, and you know, you must have thought about how you're going to make your rules for your people over thousands of years, and that's what you call original instruction. No, The original instructions were given to us. Now, when people pray, they're praying to what I call a Santa Claus God. They pray and say, okay, I need help, God. Help my friend. She's dying. Or something like that. It's always give me. And when we pray for thanks and gratitude to a whole. Nothing else. We don't pray for ourselves or things like that. We pray to give gratitude because we've been given everything that we need to exist. And what we have done as human beings is taken those things and twisted them so far out of shape that it's threatening the very existence of human beings. And this is why it's important, the elders I work with feel that we need to wake up now because Mother Earth is going to her purification in a way that is so powerful in the next couple, 3-4 years that it was the most powerful than has ever been seen in human history.
Can you say that last part?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just can you flesh out that last part just a little bit more? More powerful?
Yeah, it's going to be the most powerful than ever in human history. Now, there were 3 other civilizations in existence before us that we've forgotten. The last civilization were destroyed by water all over the world. And now we are going to have all 4 elements, earth, air, fire, and water, combined in a way that has never been seen before. And is going to wreak havoc amongst humans and everything else, but Mother Earth, you got to think about this. Mother Earth, she survived for billions of years. She's going to survive for billions more. It's our ego that thinks that that's not true, that Earth needs us to survive. But she does not need us to survive. She needs us to remember what it means to be a real human being, present in the moment and in the heart. That's all.
I was actually, that's the point, that's the exact point I wanted to come back to, Ilarion, when you said being present in the moment, because you talked about that a little bit earlier. In our tradition, we were very much taught that our natural body and our spiritual body are very separate things, and almost how I remember learning it is like the natural body is bad. And I think the end result that we've learned as we've been going through this healing process, at least for me, is that I was very separated from my body. And it was very hard to be present in the moment. And I know we talked about this the other day when Mark and I chatted with you, and I've heard a couple of your talks. I would love for you to talk more about your experience with that, being present. And I know you talk a lot about like the lack of words, but on purpose.
Yeah.
I thought that was very powerful.
My people were people of very few words. One day when my grandfather and I were walking down to the beach and praying, and afterwards we walk on the island, and it's called the birthplace of the winds. That's where winds come from, and they go through mainland Alaska, and it's always overcast or cloudy or foggy. We get 20 days of sunshine a year, believe it or not. And so this day had no clouds, there was no wind, sea was flat calm, birds were singing, the seals were barking, and I had to comment at 4 years old. In Unangan we call it, the Aleut language. I said, "It's sure beautiful." And he goes, Tuda. Only one word, tuda. In that one word, he may have encapsulated why and how our people survived and thrived in Bering Sea for 10,000 years, over 10,000 years. That words not only are superfluous, but may be dangerous. And that what we do, when we experience something that moves us so much, we don't talk about it because talking diminishes the experience, that we should just take it in. We can talk about it later, but not at that moment when we're experiencing that feeling, that this is something that we must, we live in a society now that is divorced from emotion, except for maybe anger and laughter. If a man cries, all the men here know that. If they cry in a business meeting, that would be a no-no. It's not safe to emote anymore. And so when you experience something like that, then, tell your emotion. You talk to your emotion. We talk to it and say, okay, feeling, I know that I have registered this. My body never lies. And so I'll come to you as soon as I can. And you should do that, that the next time you have some private space where it's safe to emote, then you just let it go. I asked my elders, what's this about culture anyway? And one of the elders said, well, you see the 2-year-old child? That's our professor. I said, 2-year-old child? Yeah. I was watching two boys, 2 years old, playing with each other, and they were happy and laughing, and then all of a sudden one of them did something that made the other really mad, and he put his whole body into this feeling, and then 2 minutes later he was playing again. What was he doing? What we do when we dance, when we chant, when we sing, all these kinds of things that happen, we are releasing emotion, good and bad. We release the emotion, and what that does. I mean, my elder, who's no longer alive today, here in Alaska, said, we take our emotions and stuff them down into our bodies, and we never deal with it, and it becomes toxic, and eventually it will kill you. And so, like the 2-year-old child, we are careful about our emotions. We have to pay attention to them in order to let them go, in order to be healthier as a real human being. And so, yeah, there are many things I could say about that, but you get the gist.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Shanna, what else is coming up for you? Or I think we would have a little time for questions from the audience. You think should we do that, Shanna?
I hope so.
Sure. Maybe put it in the chat, and we can, if you have a question for Ilarion, and we can start reading through some of them if there are some. While we're waiting for folks, if they have a question to put in the chat, I did have something if you want to talk a little bit more about it. Spirituality, just I can think in general,
Yes.
like to you, with the different influences on your life, your traditional upbringing and the Russian Orthodox Church. Like when you think of spirituality, what does that mean to you? What does it mean to be spiritual?
It's simply one thing, being in the heart that is in connection with the divine. And, this is a personal experience that everyone is capable of doing, but have forgotten what it means. And, going to the heart, most people I think have left their hearts. The heart is a place of love, compassion, patience, understanding, all these things that we're seeking, and it never guides you wrong. I can say that from personal experience. It never guides you wrong. And that if you follow it, you will, what you choose to focus on becomes your reality. That if you choose to focus on those things that are dark, then that's going to become your reality. If you focus on the light, they said, the elders say, we're mental, physical, and spiritual energy, right? So if you take your energy and pour it into that which you're trying to stop, inside of you and outside of you, it gets bigger, That instead, they said, go ahead and do something if your mind is telling you that that this is wrong, then go ahead and do it, but don't pour your mental, physical, spiritual energies into that. Instead, focus on that which you want to see in the world without reaction to anything. That will become the reality.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and I can see how that would shift everything about how you're walking through life then.
Yeah, and people are afraid to go back to the heart because of the traumas that we've experienced through life. And so we don't want to go back to feeling that again. That's what we think. But these feelings, the strength of these feelings are strong enough to keep you from going to the heart. The mind will play tricks, and it always lives in the past. Through guilt, shame, remorse, anger, rage, jealousy, all these things of the past, or projection into the future of something that hasn't happened yet. Every place except the proverbial now and in the heart, which is the only place that we can find the divine. Whatever the divine is, by your definition, that it's all the same.
Mm. Hey, Ilarion, we do have a couple questions that I think are very important questions. The first one is from Bev. Well, let me bring it back up and I'll read it. Ilarion said that his ancestors were enslaved by the Russian people, and then he became a member of the Russian Orthodox Church. Can he explain more about that experience, please?
Yeah, well, I wasn't so much interested in the various technical aspects of the church. I was more interested in that essence of spirituality that my grandfather taught me. But I was even an altar boy at first to start off with. And one of the things we used to do as altar boys, we would steal the wine and we would drink. And then we'd peek out the door from the altar and watch the girls. But yet, there is something that is spiritual that people feel, but it's not. One priest asked me, after I left the church, why don't you go to church? And I said, I don't find my spirituality by going to church. I go out, I find it by being out in nature. And of course, churches can do that, but most people are not experienced in what spirituality is. It's following dogmas, something created by human beings, and because of that, they're filled with mistakes as well as things that are correct. Jesus, we call Jesus a universal enlightened being, and there were several like him that were killed because of what they taught. And they forget that it's the teachings of these masters that are the thing to follow, not the man or the persona that they are, that they purport to be or are. We don't label Jesus in any way except to say he's a universal enlightened being. Buddha was the same way. There are many, not many, but there are a few that were like that. And my experience with the Russian Orthodox Church was more of what we created than what the church itself brought in terms of instructions. They teach that God is love and the devil is hatred. If God is love, and then God has love that is greater than anything that we can experience in human form. And that it has no hate. This love has no hatred. Love is not the opposite of hatred. And it is what it is. It's bigger than what we can imagine as human beings. That's when I left the church, is when I was walking by the church, and at night, and it was snowing out, and there was an elderly lady that was sitting there, and her name was Perscudia, and she was drunk, laying next to her church. And I stopped and said, let me take you home, Mom, or Grandma. And she said, no. Something, the way that she said it to me affected me. She said, no, I want to be with my church. And so I left her thinking she'd be dead the next day, but she wasn't. She survived another week, but she died when she was drunk. And the church would not bury her in the proper church burial ceremony. They didn't do any ceremony for her and put her away from our people, where our people were buried. That's when I left the Orthodox Church, because I did not feel like any church has no business judging others in this way, only a role. And we have judgment all over the place because we think that duality is natural. And when people start to unify this duality, they will see what the truth is for themselves.
Okay, there's so much more, but I do want to get to these next two questions, Ilarion, because I'm going to present them as one, and I think they're very closely related. And Mike asks, regarding the duality of darkness and light, is the goal then to rise above darkness or to learn from the darkness as apart from the light? And then Nancy's question is, in your belief system, is there evil? And if so, what is it? So I don't know if you want to answer one or the other or both of those at the same time.
I will try to answer for myself both of them. First of all, we don't believe anything. It's what
I love that.
We are taught to accept what happens to you individually, and only what you know is what you can talk about, not something that you believe in, because that is a borrowed thought from somebody else. And so you have to experience it yourself. It's called personal authority. We're taught, because of our dualistic nature, to teach our children everything, to define everything, to teach them what they should learn, and all these kinds of things. The way that I grew up, the adult's job was simply to create the space for me to learn, not tell me what to learn, how to learn, or to define anything. And so the genius of that is that it allowed me to expand out to the maximum of my capability without the interference of another adult, especially parents. I had to develop my own sense of authority. And one of the things that is given to us is by a role is the right of choice. The universe has choice. Everything has choice. And so if I choose to do something, that is my choice. And that what I choose to do with darkness and light is my choice. But what I understand is that as the light comes up, which means as human beings begin to understand harmony with all that is, the darkness will come up with it for a period of time. And it will look exactly like the light, except for those who can discern what that really is. And that we don't try to destroy it. What we do, I'll give you an example. The Catholic Church teaches that we need to have exorcism when somebody is possessed by evil. Well, in the native tradition, we don't do that. We don't try to destroy this darkness. What we do is we visualize a light that it can go to if it chooses to, or go away. Yes, but either way, we want you, evil one, to go away. So either go to the light or go away. And that's how we deal with this darkness. Trying to destroy it is, again, dualistic thinking.
That is so beautiful. So even that is left with its choice.
Yes, even that darkness has choice. Everything in creation has choice.
That is a profound. I just that stands out as a profound humility and respect.
Yeah.
Oh.
Even that will take some time.
There's a couple, two quick things I want to finish with. The first is, so I just want to mention to everybody, you mentioned the wisdom keepers of the world, and we'll put some links when we put this on the YouTube channel. We'll put some links to the wisdom keepers and to the video, the 15-minute message that you mentioned, so people can find that. We'll also put, you've founded the Global Center for Indigenous Leadership and Lifeways. And is there a donation part of that page? So if anybody live or watching the recording, if you've enjoyed this, if you found value, we'd encourage you to consider a donation. We really appreciate Ilarion taking the time to be with us. I know you've got lots of people asking for your time, so we thank you. And just in that same vein, as you think of having spent this time with us, what would you like to see in our lives, or just in our being, in our thinking, in our acting? What would, like, say 6 months from now or a year from now, if you could look at our group, what would make you feel like this was time well spent with us?
Well, I tell you what Colombian elders from Colombia, South America do. They recently created an organization of sages, spiritual leaders. There are 1,000 members and 115 different tribes. They got together and were unanimous in their conclusion of what they need to do. And they said they would like to contact all people of the world and ask them if they could perform ceremonies that were synchronized with theirs, that is aimed at creating a vibrational field around Mother Earth of love. That right now the vibrational field is only of imbalance, and that there will be given a choice of doing that or going towards the vibrational field of love. Now this is beyond quantum physics, and it's very difficult to understand, but indigenous people understand that what they do, the most important part of what they do, is put out this vibration that is backed up by the intent being in harmony with all that is. And so I feel like, you are my other self. And so I'm talking to me. And I am urging you, if anything that I said resonates with you, it's only because I'm reminding you of what you already know. And people must realize that there's no singular gurus anymore. We chose to be here on Mother Earth at this point in time. And that your answers to what you need to do is in your heart. And that we need to access our hearts to give our gift to the world. Each one of us, every one of us in the world, has a gift to give to the world during this time. So we need everyone.
Wow. I think that better be a beautiful, beautiful stopping point tonight. we could go a lot longer. But, well, big.
Well, thank you very much. And like I said, I pray that what I share, some of it you can use in your life.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And thanks everybody for joining us.